Welcome back. A crucial Senate matchup that could decide control of Congress is officially set. Maine's incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins will face controversial Democratic newcomer Graham Platner, who won more than 70% of the vote in last night's Democratic primary after Governor Janet Mills suspended her campaign in April. The Maine seat is effectively a must-win for Democrats if they hope to retake control of the Senate. The firestorm around Platner's campaign has only intensified in recent days following reports of toxic and at times physically aggressive behavior towards former girlfriends, which he denies. This morning, Platner, who has denied all of those allegations of physical violence, downplayed the controversies.
There's nothing out there that's actually concerning. People will make everything seem very concerning because that's what people do in politics. But, you know, I think the thing about all of this is what I find to be kind of most curious is this is what everyone wants to make the campaign about. So we do not talk about the struggles of working Mainers.
President Trump today going out of his way to slam Platner repeatedly while speaking to reporters in the Oval Office.
He's a thug, and they're trying to make excuses for him. I mean, he's worse than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. This is a thug. He's a cheap, no good person. I've made a lot of money picking out phonies. He's a real phony. He's a bad person because he's just an outright pig. He's like a pig.
Joining me now is NBC chief data analyst Steve Kornacki and Alex Seitz-Wald, former NBC News politics reporter and current editor of the Maine newspaper, the Midcoast Villager. We are so excited to have you, Alex, but let me start with Steve. Steve, we're also so excited to have you. I get to see you a little bit more. We are going to get to Graham Platner's race in just a minute, but first, unpack what happened in the California gubernatorial race. Tell us what happened there.
Yeah, it took a while, Kristen, but you now see it on our screen here. 2 check marks, meaning the decision desk last night did make the call officially that Steve Hilton, one of the Republican candidates, will join Javier Becerra in the general election for governor of California. Those two will advance again. California's top 2 primary system here. All the candidates, regardless of party, run on the same ballot. So you can see there was sort of a big collection of names that were right there. But Hilton gets in there. The significance obviously means Republicans will be represented in the general election. That's something that doesn't automatically happen in the blue state of California. There have been races under this system where it's been 2 Democrats against each other. So Republicans will be represented. But of course, in terms of Hilton's prospects, you say it's a deep, deep blue state. Look at it this way. Hilton got 25% here. Go down, you see the other Maine Republican, Chad Bianco. He got about 10%. That's 35% between the two of them. And of course, you look at how Trump did in this state in 2024, 38%. So a combined 35%, 38% for Trump. Something dramatic would have to change for Hilton to actually make this a competitive race against Becerra in the fall.
Okay, well, now we're looking at a competitive race in Maine and obviously big results in South Carolina as well. Steve, talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, we can start on South Carolina because I know you'll come to Maine with Alex after. So why don't we just go down there and 2 things that stand out. Number 1 here on the Senate side, Lindsey Graham does win his Republican primary here. This is sort of a tradition with Graham, I think you could almost say here. There's been throughout his career in the Senate, he's had a lot of sort of, he's been viewed with suspicion, I think it's fair to say, by the base throughout a lot of his career. Every 6 years, he's got to get through one of these Republican primaries. He doesn't necessarily do it impressively. This is not really an impressive number, under 60% here for an incumbent United States Senator. But for Graham, it serves his purposes. He wins the primary. He did have the endorsement of Donald Trump in this race, probably carried a lot of weight in a state like this. He gets through the primary, and again, the prohibitive favorite in the general election, just given the political bent of South Carolina. The other notable result in South Carolina last night, the very crowded Republican race for governor right here. This is the Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette, endorsed by Donald Trump. She finishes first here over the Attorney General, Alan Wilson, notably back down in 5th place here. A lot of folks surprised by this. Congresswoman Nancy Mace just gets 12%, a distant 5th, as it turns out, in this race for governor of South Carolina on the Republican side. And then, of course, as you say, there is that race up in Maine. Everybody was looking last night at what Platner's number would be here. You know, Janet Mills' name was still on the ballot. She'd been making clear her name was still on the ballot in the final days. A couple others here as well. Platner lands at 72%. I think the significance of that number, just trying to look at, you know, is it impressive? Is it unimpressive? unimpressive. There was a poll taken about 2 weeks ago before this latest round of controversy and after Mills had dropped out. Platner had been at 76% in that poll, lands at 72%. It's a little bit under, but there's got to be a little wiggle room there. He basically landed where he was in that poll. There's not any evidence, really, when you look at that number and say there was a dramatic shift away from him among Democrats amidst this controversy. So I think clearly he's taken this as a sign of strength. You're looking at a lot of Democrats, their reactions to this result today, they seem to be interpreting it that way as well.
Yeah, underscores there may be a disconnect between the national conversation with Democrats and the conversation in Maine that Democrats are having. All right, Steve, thank you so much for joining us and setting us up. We really appreciate it. Alex, let me turn to you, and I want to start off by getting you to just react to what we heard from Graham Platner there with Mika Brzezinski, the fact that he was downplaying the controversies that have swirled around him. Is that going to be the strategy moving forward, to just dismiss whatever comes his way?
Well, I think it will depend what comes. And obviously, the big question on everybody's mind is what else is out there? Is there something even more damaging than what's already come? But he's now been inoculated, I think, by this result. I think he basically got what he needed to out of last night, quieted the doubters. You saw Chuck Schumer, the DSCC, Senate Majority PAC all quickly get behind him. And Republicans now saying that it would be a fatal assumption to assume he's too damaged to win. But part of the way that he got to where he is was by taking responsibility and apologizing for those earlier scandals that he had in the fall. People really responded positively to that. They felt like he was being honest and human in a way that we rarely see from politicians. And in this more recent spate of scandals about the sexting and his past relationships, he did the more kind of traditional, attack the media, deny it, quibble over how many women he was really sexting with. And that got a much more negative reaction from a lot of voters that I've spoken to. So he's in a tough place rhetorically now because, he's got to carry the party banner. He's got to go up against Susan Collins and present a unified front. But at the same time, he has to be this relatable, down-home Maine guy who works with his hands and is a real human being, a tough guy who goes to therapy, as he puts it. But he's, I think, in a stronger position than he's been in really this entire race heading into November now. Well,
you raise his opponent, Susan Collins. I want to play a little bit of what he said about Susan Collins in his speech last night. Get your reaction. Take a look.
Susan Collins may have started her career decades ago in Washington with good intentions, but she has become just as spineless and corrupt as the establishment she now serves. She got elected promising to protect Roe versus Wade, only to turn around and put a justice of the Supreme Court who overturned it. She lied to us.
So it's a pretty interesting strategy, Alex, given the fact that a number of the controversies swirling around Graham Platner have to do with both his treatment and language about women.
Absolutely. And the swing voters in Maine for Susan Collins are women. There's been a lot of talk about how he could appeal to white working class voters, and maybe he can bring some of those in. But Susan Collins has won, and with huge margins in a blue state, by winning Democratic or independent voters and largely women. She won, with 65% of the vote in 2008, which was a great year for Democrats. In 2020, she won by 9 percentage points against a totally qualified, uncontroversial Democrat who outspent her 2-1. So Democrats in Maine know this, but I think nationally folks have a harder time understanding. Susan Collins is very tough to beat. You should take this very seriously. And I think what Platner was doing last night was to turn the focus. It's all been on him, but he's now turning the attention back to Susan Collins. And that's a much more comfortable place, not just for him, but for Democrats who are uncomfortable with Platner with these allegations, mostly women, and I've spoken to a lot of women who are deeply uncomfortable with this, but because of the stakes, because they know Susan Collins, because they've been trying to get rid of her for so long, they will vote for Platner in the fall, or at least most of them will. And the more Trump attacks him, the more this is about control of the Senate, about abortion rights, about the Supreme Court. That is the safe space for Democrats. That's where he wants this to be, the focus on her, not on him.
All right, Alex Seitz-Wald, we're going to cover this race closely, which means we will have you back often, my friend. Thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Kristen.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.